Hello.
Hey,
You hear me?
yeah, I can hear. Can you hear me? Hey, Roger.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Oh, good. How about you?
Good, good. Hello.
Hey, Alexa. All right, we'll give it a few minutes. Normally, people are a bit late joiners, and we'll start. All right, let's get started. As usual, I will share my screen. Just an FYI, of course, this is recorded, and then it will be uploaded to YouTube. That's where you can find all the Hyperledger Firefly community calls and videos. And there is an antitrust policy that we need to abide from the Linux Foundations. If you don't agree with this antitrust policy, you don't want to be recorded, then I suggest you leave the call now, which I hope is no one. So today on the agenda, I want to talk a little bit about a 132 that we're planning, just to get some more fixes to the pipeline. There's been loads of activity across the board, and Matt will talk about one of the fixes that we want to get through that's quite important around handling large numbers that we came across maybe a week or a week and a half ago. And we've been putting fixes through, and there's a test run for that. David will talk a little bit about how we've added Homebrew, which is a package manager tool for macOS, how you can install the FireFly CLI through that now, making it easier. And then we can talk about any other topics raised by the community members. So there is a new milestone on the main FireFly for 132. It's already 50% completed. There's an annoying thing with GitHub that you can't really track milestones across different repos, but there's a lot of fixes going into 132. There's been fixes to the transaction manager engine part, to the EVM connection part as well, to the CLI, to the main of FireFly, and I'm sure I'm missing more fixes in different repos. There is a docs issue, there's a test plan, there's performance testing to be done, and this is the main one that we're targeting this 132 for, and we have here a test plan for this specific issue. It really affects most of the components in FireFly, so there'll be some rigorous testing in a couple of weeks, well, hopefully in the next week or so, to get, or even shorter we can, to get this new 132 release, and we'll pick up all the new versions of all the new components. The other thing that we're doing as well, which Matt has started today, is we're upgrading all the FireFly components to Go 1.22. I think, Alexei, you mentioned it in one of the PRs a couple of weeks ago. You raised it to migrate it. I think now we're taking the action to make sure that's all in. So we have the new 1.22 in all the repos. And yeah, it's just final thing. Obviously, the one thing that creates a lot of confusion as part of the release is the order of what and the versionings. So the idea with FireFly is that 132, the FireFly CLI, the FireFly core, and the versions, the images of Helm charts are all aligned. So what we do first is we release the CLI with a version of 132. Then we release FireFly with a version of 132. And within FireFly, there's a manifest which contains all the images of all the components of FireFly. And then we update the Helm releases with the Helm charts with those new images. And then we publish those Helm charts so people can use them. So I'm sure you will see loads of PRs being raised. And if you have any questions, obviously feel free to reach out. So Matt, are you ready to talk a little bit about this large number issue, or you want
Could we
a few minutes?
do Helm first? Sorry, not Helm.
Brew?
Brew.
Yeah,
First, is that
David,
okay?
you want to demo the brew install first, and then we'll move to discussing this issue? I think you might be on mute, David, if you are talking.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, so really where this is coming from, I installed lately the FireFly CLI, and I try to. The first thing I do when I install a new tool is I try to run the brew install, and I couldn't. So I thought that it might be a nice addition to the FireFly CLI to have a brew installation sort of out of the box. So I would. Do you want me to share my screen? Or...
Yeah, go ahead. This is only the issue for people to reference that it's been open for a while, for 2 years. So I'm very glad that David picked it up as a new joiner to FireFly. It was tagged a good first issue for a while to get this one going. So go ahead, David. You want to share your screen?
Okay, thank you. I believe you guys see my screen. Okay, so 1 second. Okay, so yeah, you see my screen, right? Yeah. So it's pretty straightforward, right? We have over here the brewing. So FireFly, and it's not installed. And then once I run the brew install,
Not sharing your screen, David.
I'm not sharing my screen?
No, we cannot see your screen.
Oh. 1 second, give me a moment. No.
It says you started sharing your screen, but
yourself.
Oh, there we go.
Do you see anything?
Yeah, now we can see it. It's just quite slow.
You see my screen?
Okay. Yeah, just
so do you see my terminal?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so as you can see, FireFly is not installed on my machine. I run the brew install FireFly, and voila. And now we run FireFly, and here we go, it's installed. I opened already one PR for the documentation. Okay, so you can see over there the latest PR. So the documentation, so we're adding this also to the documentation. I have another PR that's already cooked. I'll open it right after this meeting, which is we will dynamically load the name of the executable because right now, obviously the name of the executable is FireFly, and over here in the usage and the help commands, etc., it shows as FF. So we'll just change it to like something that based on the executable name, we would load it. So it would look a little bit nicer when installing from a brew. Okay, that's all for me. Any comment about that? What do you think about this? Really?
Yeah, I think it'd be nice to just be able to pass it in for every helper, especially when we do like we initialize a new stack and we start, we always give like a helper function. Just a neat way of being able to replace those.
Yeah, so see the PR once I open it. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward the way I did it. Okay, but yeah, that's it for me.
Cool, thanks, David. One thing that I will call though that did catch me when I was trying this out is if you've ever developed FireFly CLI and you run this Go build where you build a binary in Golang and it adds it to your path, right? In the case of Go bin, and you try FireFly, you're like, well, why does this take in preference over Brew? But it does. Just make sure you don't have anything else in your path with FireFly, because I was like having issues with just making sure that I had to clean up that one from the path and use the Brew one. The other thing that we haven't enabled yet with Brew is right now it's versioned, right, David? The latest one on Brew is V132, 131, sorry. So maybe we can think about how we could enable latest to have a latest version on Brew. I don't know if that's possible.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah.
So the way I submitted the Brew is that they have sort of like a webhook that listens to the FireFly repository. The way it works under the hood in their side. So once we release a new version, FireFly releases a new version, it automatically. So the way it works, it opens a PR automatically in the Brew core repository. And it usually takes them like a few hours, I believe. It's pretty quick. It runs pretty quick, and then it's merged. And once that happens, so it's also updated over there. So it's like sort of out of the. It should work like automatically out of the box, updating to the latest version.
Okay, so that's updating to the latest release version. What I was looking for was if there was a way to just someone to get the latest main branch through Brew. So they could do something like Brew install FireFly at main. Is that even possible with Brew? Because one of the things that I find a lot of people sometimes say, oh, okay, could you fix this thing? And we fix it, but then it might take us a few weeks or more longer to actually release a version, and they want to use that fix. And today, the only thing you can do is clone the repo, make build, or in the case, just a Go build of the CLI, add it to your path, and then make sure you use that instead of the other ones that you might have installed previously.
So we could update the formula at Brew. It's a good question. So the answer is basically no. It's not that common to work. That means usually when you have like a hotfix or something that push to your main branch, so just you need to build locally, right, from your main branch. What we could possibly do is have Brew listen. So right now the way it works, so Brew is listening to specific tags, right, like specific regex of our tag structure. And once that regex is updated, like once there's a new tag, only then Brewless, runs its thing. But we could change it and add there. Let's say if we decide, if you have, let's say, a hotfix, okay, for example, so we can like create the special version with a hotfix prefix or suffix or something like that, and then have Brew listen to that as well. In this way, so you would need to like create a new tag when you push a hotfix, but you don't need to create the final tag, like a new release or something. That means you are releasing something, right?
Yeah, you're still having to cut a GitHub release. What happens with release candidates? That's something we do a lot as part of a release. We cut new release candidates to make sure we're testing incrementally. Does it pick that up?
I think it doesn't. I need to recheck that. I think I didn't want that Brew to pick up the release candidates. I think we want Brew to pick up only the latest release. But I need to look at that. I could look at that again. Yeah.
All right, thanks. Any other questions for David?
Does it support other components like FireFly or only on the core? Like
It's only the CL. So the homebrew is right. It's a package manager. It's a homebrew package manager. So it will support only the FireFly CLI. Anything that's related to the FireFly core / images, etc. So that is managed by obviously FireFly and not by homebrew. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think today the only two things that we have as tools to actually deploy the stack are either the Helm charts, which we do publish them. I think right now they're V01 maybe, I don't remember, but it's not on the old version yet. And then we have the FireFly CLI. So I think just one more way of publishing that tool to a different ecosystem of Mac users that are really common with it. All right, Matt, are you ready to go?
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah,
That's fine.
just
All yours.
trying to sort something out. So yeah, let me share screen as well. You seeing that screen okay, Enrique? So yeah, this was just an update on a Git issue that I opened on FireFly after we had an application that was hitting some problems deploying contracts with constructor params of a certain type. So this issue is still open, but I think we could probably actually close it now. You'll see there's quite a lot of kind of detailed testing we want to do as part of this FireFly release. So we're going to leave it open just while we go through some of the different tests for the release candidate. But I thought one of the easiest ways to kind of explain the issue or show both the issue before and the fix after was to look at some of the tests in FireFly AVM Connect, which we've now added to prove out the fix and explain where issues arose. So this test here in FireFly VM Connect is testing contract deploys with different constructor parameters. So so this is a JSON payload that could come into FireFly VM Connect from any application directing traffic to it. And if you look at this has got two constructor params as inputs. There's a uint256 and there's a string. And you'll notice this really large number here. Is this big enough, Enrique, while I'm talking?
Yeah. I can see it.
So this really large number here is valid JSON, but it typically would exceed the size of an integer that for example, Node.js will serialize to. If you ask Node.js to serialize really large numbers, then typically they come out as strings. And again, if I give an example of that, so FireFly totally supports large numbers coming in as strings for numeric field types. But because it is possible, something that does produce its own JSON, something that serializes JSON itself or is more handcrafted, it's certainly possible that a number this size could come into EVM Connect as a totally valid JSON payload. And what happened if you had that was that before now, we would parse that into a Golang interface. And the way that Golang works is JSON parses that into a float64. And it does it silently, and you lose precision, you lose data, and what you end up with is an invalid number. In this particular case, that was kind of showing itself as further down the stack, being seen as a negative number, and that was causing problems for an application we were testing. Another related part of this PR, which is low down here, is that we also found some applications again this was a ramification of driving traffic from Node.js, is that if you serialize a big integer in Node.js, you actually can end up with a scientific notation number. It doesn't necessarily need to be this big, You know, it could be like that, but you find that Node.js will serialize large numbers into scientific notation. So I think this was the example that we saw in certain cases. And again, it's perfectly valid JSON. It's a perfectly valid number, and because Golang has a way of parsing scientific notation natively, which I've got an example of here. This is part of the code fix. In Golang, if you use the parse flow option and specify the precision, it will parse scientific notation correctly and correctly turn a JSON number like this into a Golang big integer. So the point of this PR was, firstly, if I scroll back up, to support very large JSON numbers, which again, a valid JSON, somewhat unlikely to see in reality, but perfectly valid JSON, and also to support large numbers as scientific notation. Most of the logic is done in FireFly Common, but the parsing of scientific notation into from scientific notation into a big int is done in FireFly Signer. So the PR actually affected FireFly Common, FireFly Signer, and we've added unit tests to FireFly EVM Connect along these ones here I'm showing you to exercise those examples and prove that the rest of the logic is good. So if I go back to the issue, so yeah, the PRs in FireFly Common that detail some of the specifics, PR in FireFly Signer similarly, and then hopefully with this release, we'll be closing out this issue once we've gone through some of that additional testing. Any questions?
For me, the only thing that I highlighted in the issue, I think it was one of the last bullet points, maybe Dennis and Alexia are interested, is we haven't really touched base with Tezos folks on this. So we will look at Fabric, at the Fab Connect, because we found this in EVM Connect for testing EVM transactions. But I'm sure the same will apply to Tezos and to Fabric.
Yeah, so we've looked through places in the rest of FireFly. We've had a sniff look to see, effectively to see why haven't we been hitting this before now, because huge numbers are really common place in Web3 applications, in blockchains. And most places, things like the UI, I think things like the sandbox, are typically passing strings into the stack. So that's why it's kind of an edge case that you would hit this, but it felt like silently losing precision and or giving you these ugly errors if you did happen to be driving traffic in. It's something that's worth fixing, and we hit this through a genuine use case, a Node.js application doing nothing more than submitting JSON with large numbers, and you hit this problem. So it's certainly conceivable people would hit this, and it's kind of conceivable, I think, someone will be hitting this and not knowing that they've lost some precision going into their smart contract. But my gut feel is that the majority of cases will be strings coming in, being handled correctly. So we don't imagine this is going to affect a huge number of people.
And I think one of my biggest worries was the other way around, was you're connecting FireFly to a large, a mainnet or a large testnet, and you are indexing events and you're indexing financial data or whatever, and suddenly FireFly is the problem and is modifying those before storing them.
Yeah,
but I think we validated that that's not happening, at least for the EVM stack. So something like Tezos, which is a big chain as well, would be interesting to validate that those listeners and everything's working correctly.
Yeah, you'll notice in the EVM Connect unit test, we very specifically have added like a 1 onto the end of the big numbers, because one case we saw was that it was certainly possible to miss that you were losing precision. So one of the reasons for having a 1 on the end of these numbers is that very quickly showed up the cases where actually you had a huge number and you were losing like a number off the end of it. But yeah.
Yes, I think that just showcases a little bit the importance of dispatch. I think Alexia, a few months ago, maybe 3-4 months ago, you were like, we should release FireFly more often. So I think I'm making that conscious effort to. We got 131 out recently, maybe a month ago, maybe something like that, and now we're getting 132. So we're getting better, releasing quicker, getting more of these fixes to users, and making sure that people can get them, and we're not at the same time not breaking people through these patch releases.
I should say that we should be adding a small section to the docs as part of the release, just to kind of explain that, maybe give some examples of JSON that is now supported.
Awesome. Any other questions for Matt? Cool. Yeah, I think that's it I had. I think one of the things I wanted to highlight is, some feedback on the Helm charts is really good. I'm getting loads of stuff through Discord. I think Roger, you used them a few weeks ago. I got other folks trying to generate certificates for data exchange. That was a bit complex. Yeah, any contributions there would be really useful. I think it's been great to see more people use the Helm charts for actually deploying things and keeping things alive longer than the FireFly CLI, which was more designed as a dev tool just to run things locally.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed playing around with them. I haven't had as much time as I've wanted to play around with them, but I'll definitely dig in a little bit more. I mean, just as far as convenience, running like Helm and Kind on your local machine to get all the little pieces together, working together kind of easily is really nice. So I was happy to see those. We're doing something similar with what we call crib, which is like chain link running in a box, which is kind of the same thing driven by like Helm charts. So I'm kind of trying to champion a little project to see if we can like kind of combine some of that stuff together with FireFly. So stay tuned on that, but it should be pretty interesting.
Sounds good. Thanks, Roger. All right, I'll open the floor. Does anyone else have any other things they want to discuss tonight? Okay, cool. So yeah, stay tuned for the new patch release, and of course find me on Discord. The other thing, I don't know if folks are going to be there. I think we'll have one next month, but I'll be at the Maintainers Day for Hyperledger at the end of October, where all the maintainers of Hyperledger projects will be there. So if people are there in person, I'm happy to meet you guys.
Yeah, I'll be out there. So.
That's good. I'll see you there.
Yeah. See ya.
All right. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.